Don Felder delivered haunting sounds that defined an era for decades, but a tempest was quietly gathering beneath those golden chords. What happened? We should take a month vacation, he added. Early dispute on how much and how hard to labor. Backstage, something less harmonious was happening while audiences enjoyed the harmonies and songs. Felder is finally speaking after years of enigmatic interviews and extended silences. Really talk. His revelations go beyond guitars and splendor. This is about power, stillness, and what happens when the dream rots inside. A previously unreported story changes the storyline. You'll discover the fracture's depth. Don Felder joined the Eagles in 1974 as more than a guitarist. It gave the band a fresh sound that propelled them from country rock musicians to rock superstars. Before Felder arrived, the Eagles' harmonies and laid-back California approach were exemplified by Peaceful Easy Feeling and Tequila Sunrise. Felder, who played hard rock guitar and has played with southern rock bands, added an edgier, electrified sound to the group. His first contributions were on the Border, especially on Already Gone, where his muscular playing suggested a musical transition. Felder immediately became a key creative contributor. As the Eagles went toward a stronger, radio-friendly rock sound, his guitar arrangements defined their identity. Felder's elaborate guitar lines and beautiful vocal harmonies colored Too Many Hands, and the album's title tune on 1975's One of These Nights. Felder's musical sensibilities contrasted with Glenn Frey's pop sensibility and Don Henley's lyrical skill, adding technical and melodic sophistication to the band's most successful time. After Felder arrived, the group's commercial success increased. Their first #1 album came from One of These Nights. Felder may not always get credit for his songwriting, but he helped make the Eagles famous with that sound. Other than Hotel California, Felder co-wrote Victim of Love and Those Shoes, masterpieces that showcased funk rhythms with searing guitar textures. These Hotel California and the Long Run songs had a color palette beyond the band's previous work. Felder's longer jams showed his technical skill and ability to captivate his audience with sheer musicianship, making him a key component of Eagles shows. Felder bonded the Eagles' legacy even without him. One riff produced in solitude would resonate louder than any record. The Hotel California guitar solo, one of rock's finest, began modestly in Don Felder's Malibu home studio. Felder made a crude demo with a 4-track tape recorder and 12-string guitar, unaware that it would form the Eagles' greatest hit. In a 2023 Yahoo Entertainment interview, he recalls sending Don and Glenn 15 or 16 cassette music ideas. One suggestion had a somber chord sequence and beautiful melody. That demo became Hotel California's backbone, cementing Felder's rock legacy. Felder was shocked when the band kept his original recording structure. He remarked he was surprised they preserved my demo's structure virtually precisely how I recorded it. Felder's strong and clear musical vision is shown by this remarkable fidelity to a demo, especially in a major studio production. Don Henley and Glenn Frey told a strange story about American gluttony on the instrumental. The lyrics caught listeners' imagination, but Felder's melody gave the song its haunting cinematic ambiance. Many believe Walsh and Felder composed the famous closing solo while playing. Nothing could be more false, he said. It was well planned from start to finish. Every line of the guitar talk was choreographed. The dual lead that defined Hotel California also changed rock guitar solo expectations. Highly emotional, technically proficient. That set all lead guitar solo expectations. Generations have made it legend. Welcome many guitarists and being inducted into rock's Hall of Fame. This finely balanced, contrasted solo is still studied and admired years later. Felder stands alone at Hotel California. He plays it note for note in his solo gigs as a compliment, not an excuse. People come to hear memories, he said. Felder stays true to the original to honor the song and the fans that made it famous. Even after years of Eagles fighting, he confidently claims to have written the melody, not just another song. It showcases his musical richness with the Eagles. Technical mastery and lasting emotional impact. Period of Henley Frey control. Don Felder and Glenn Frey gained power as the Eagles grew from a cohesive ensemble to a global powerhouse. Don Felder, who joined in 1974 and formed the band's rock identity, saw this transformation firsthand. Felder compared the band's subsequent structure to a corporate model, with Henley and Frey making executive decisions in his biography Heaven and Hell and in interviews. Felder noted that the Eagles had become a business rather than a band, highlighting the marginalization of non-top-down voices. During the 1994 Hellfreeze reunion, which was designed to celebrate the original chemistry, things changed. Felder and the others felt the band would return to equality. He was surprised by Henley and Frey's new financial structure, which gave them 70% of revenues. Felder, Joe Walsh, and Timothy B. Schmidt will share 25%. Felder's status declined during the reunion. He co-wrote the band's greatest song and performed all his obligations, yet he was excluded from the critical choices. Tour planning and business negotiations were outside his former collaborative input. Felder equated it to working under two bosses, and it wasn't as collaborative as before. Creative ideas were typically ignored, and challenging Henley and Frey was seen as insubordination. Instead, internal politics diminished his role, not talent or contribution. This happened as the Eagles were rewriting their fate and breaking their old links. Felder's challenges to this new system were seen as protests against control, not fairness. Ego wasn't involved, he said, about fairness. Remaining true to our roots. Dissent became rebellion. He left the band in 2001, and it had stopped being creative. The Hell Freezes Over tour, once touted as a triumphal reunion, symbolized the Eagles' shift from a band to a tightly managed brand ruled by two. End of an era. The Eagles fired Don Felder abruptly and impersonally in 2001 with a fax to his office. "I got a fax stating you're out," he told Yahoo Entertainment in 2023. The dismissal came without notice or explanation after nearly 3 decades of shaping the band's sound and reputation. No meeting, no phone call, simply a stark letter highlighting the band's internal culture transformation. Felder's firing was surprising and dehumanizing. Contrasting with Felder's belief in the group's bond made the firing extra painful. Although tensions were rising, he still saw the Eagles as a partnership based on shared history and accomplishments. He claimed he assumed it would be a band again, but they operated it like a business and treated me like an employee. This comment emphasizes the decision's emotional impact. Felder's co-writing of Hotel California and guitar work were crucial to the band's legacy. Yet his contributions weren't enough to prevent his transactional expulsion. Felder's firing prompted the legal action, which led to a lawsuit for wrongful termination, breach of contract, and unfair profit distribution. This ended one of the most personal aspects of one of rock's most successful bands. This led to media interest, active, knowledgeable fans, and industry watchers learning about power dynamics for the first time. Felder wanted more than cash from the case. In his memoir, he said it wasn't money, it was about honor and erasure. "I helped build it." The case was settled out of court in 2007. The Eagles' public image was forever changed. Felder was in a wreck afterward, but he didn't disappear or pout. He reclaimed his art on his own terms. Symbolic fire became a flashpoint, not to demonstrate his departing, but an unpleasant cautionary story about what occurs when power, ego, and control overwhelm creative partnership. Cuts off. "I'm not after destruction," Felder remarked years later, "I want the truth." Despite its sorrow, that realization led Felder to reinvent himself. The shift from institutional loyalty to artist-storyteller autonomy. Legacy and lawsuit. Don Felder's unexpected 2001 termination ended his Eagles' career and sparked one of rock's most public and revealing litigation battles. Felder sued Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Eagles looted after Fax fired him, claiming unjust profit-sharing, contract breach, and termination. Legal filings revealed the Eagles' internal conflicts that had hidden beneath their flawless public image. Felder challenged the band's 1994 reunion's financial arrangement, which gave Henley and Frey influence and revenue. Felder's termination was more than retaliation. It concluded years of creative and financial equity battles. Not only was the music business shaken by the case, captivated it. For the first time, fans and media learned how one of the world's most successful bands works throughout legal processes. Felder described a harsh workplace where his role was systematically reduced. He said in interviews that those conditions made it hard to continue. He described being excluded from business meetings and regarded as expendable despite his musical history. The Eagles' long-projected togetherness was shattered by ego, hierarchy, and unrestrained authority throughout the court fight. Felder repeated that the suit was not about him profiting. "My finances weren't a problem," he told Yahoo Entertainment. Upholding justice was the focus. Building his legacy and recognizing his musical and artistic contributions to the Eagles was the main reason. He also wanted credit for molding the band's most successful years, not merely songwriting. It was much more. Legal action was an unpleasant way to reveal long-held secrets. Felder settled the issue out of court in 2007 without revealing terms. The message was clear. Felder would survive. At least professionally, the case changed his life. It also freed him from a poisonous environment and let him work independently. He later added, "If I don't tell the truth, no one else will," emphasizing voice and agency. Felder began legal processes to assert his status as an artist with a career too powerful for institutional power to marginalize. This increased the discussion about justice in the music industry and encouraged others to speak up about legacy and authorship. Felder grabbed a different weapon when the dust settled. His words. Shaking the Nest memoir. Don Felder's 2008 memoir Heaven and Hell, My Life with the Eagles, 1974 to 2001 shocked the music industry. Not just another rock biography. A daring eyewitness story of power conflicts, betrayal, and survival within one of the most successful bands ever. Felder vividly described how the Eagles went from a collaborative, creative band to a corporate brand driven by Don Henley and Glenn Frey. He claimed that the Eagles became a business, setting the tone for a blunt book. Fans' polished image was questioned by the story. The outcry was fast. After the discoveries, Henley and Frey were outraged, and Henley's legal team threatened Felder with breach of confidentiality agreements. Yahoo Entertainment claims they tried to block bits of the audiobook. Felder persisted despite legal pressure. He said in a 2023 interview that he didn't write it to destroy anyone. It might be heavier if I wanted. This restraint was intentional. Felder might have shown more, but he balanced truth and dignity to show readers dysfunction without sensationalism. The genuine, thoughtful, and even self-critical tone of Felder's speech captivated us. He described his rage and attrition in the band. This vulnerability grounded the work, allowing rebellious readers to consider what Felder was put through and how he reacted. I was trying to survive in an environment where the rules kept changing, he expressed. Instead of creating a self-portrait of a perfect victim, Felder managed to detail the convolutions of a man caught between loyalty and principle. It was this kind of emotional honesty that elevated Heaven and Hell beyond a tell-all. It became an act of therapy, the forging of truth, and one man's recovery. The public split into opposing camps. Some equated the memoir with needless grievance blasting, whereas many considered it a courageous, overdue revelation. Heaven and Hell grew over the years into a truly seminal text of rock memoirs for what it had to say not just about the Eagles, but also about the darker underside of band politics and artistic control in general. He felt a desire to set the record straight in Heaven and Hell, an expression of his individuality. If I didn't speak up, no one would ever know what really happened, he said. Thus, by going north in his story, he opened up the South back again to a discussion about integrity and authorship and the unmentioned costs of fame. Beyond the Eagles, after his highly publicized split from the Eagles, Don Felder faced a choice: retreat from the spotlight or re-emerge on his own terms. He chose the latter. In 2012, more than a decade after being fired, Felder released Road to Forever, a deeply personal solo album that marked his re-entry into the music world, not as a band member, but as an independent artist. It was very cathartic, Felder told Yahoo Entertainment, explaining that the album's themes of betrayal, loss, and resilience mirrored the emotional journey he had undergone since his departure. The songs were not aimed at revenge, but rather at processing trauma and rediscovering his voice through music. Road to Forever was critically well received and featured collaborations with respected artists like Steve Lukather and David Paich of Toto. It was clear that Felder's reputation among musicians remained strong, even if his public standing had taken a hit in the fallout with the Eagles. But it was his 2019 follow-up, American Rock and Roll, that truly solidified his place as a standalone force. The album included appearances by rock heavyweights such as Slash, Mick Fleetwood, Sammy Hagar, and Chad Smith, showing that Felder was not only still respected in the industry, but also capable of rallying a cross-generational roster of talent. "This is who I am musically, without filters," Felder said, asserting his creative independence. The impact of Felder's solo work stemmed not just from the presence of his iconic collaborators, but from the emotional clarity and authenticity of the material. Free of the internal politics and creative restrictions that pushed down on his years with the Eagles, Felder's writing broadened to include such themes as aging, self-esteem, loss of love, and personal freedom. He acted as producer and arranger, and played guitar, and played his role as frontman. In every aspect of the music, he took back what had become ancillary roles in the last years of the band. On the other hand, songs like Wash Away and The Way Things Have to Be musically knew no boundaries, as they expressed a feeling of having been resilient through personal reflection and self-assertion from the life put into the lyrics. Felder also renewed the connection with his audience by conducting the concert tour regularly. The live gigs offered a smaller environment compared to when he toured stadiums, but the energy present was no less. Fans appeared for far more than nostalgia. They came to see an artist with fresh material who was still working and evolving. Paying tribute to the greatness of the past in concert, Felder remained, cherished Hotel California and other classics, while putting greater emphasis on his new songs. "I'm not chasing what was, I'm creating what's next," he stated. He was continuously refactoring the definition of moving past public rejection after every album and performance, exhibiting how survival and accomplishments do not subordinate to the past. Felder's quiet reconciliation. As Don Felder entered the later stages of his career, a noticeable shift emerged in how he spoke about his past. Not with the urgency of someone seeking vindication, but with the clarity of someone who had made peace with the unresolved.
In interviews from 2024 and 2025, Felder no longer seemed intent on reliving every detail of his time with the Eagles. Instead, he reflected with emotional restraint
and personal insight. "I don't want to turn my life into a long narrative," he said, illustrating a deliberate decision to move on, not by forgetting, but by setting boundaries. His path had taken him through betrayal, legal battles, and creative silencing, but his later reflections emphasized self-understanding rather than resentment. One of the most poignant revelations was Felder's account of attempting to reconcile with Glenn Frey before Frey's death in 20. Though he reached out, his effort was met with silence. "There was a gap between us that will never be filled," Felder admitted. "Not with bitterness, but with a mournful acceptance that some divides, even with time, cannot be bridged." His decision to attend Frey's memorial and his respectful tone in media statements underscored a maturity that went beyond public perception. Felder wasn't pretending a friendship still existed, but he acknowledged the shared history and the importance of grace. That kind of clarity can't be faked, it's earned through years of reflection. Felder spoke some frank words describing his rather tortured relationship with Don Henley. "It is distant, but not hostile. There are things that I still do not like about the way Henley ran the band, but that's behind me," he noted. In explaining what forgiveness meant for him, forgiving is not necessarily absolving others for their own sake. It's release for himself from the heaviness of holding on to that anger. "I forgive, so I don't have to carry the burden anymore." That became the fulcrum of Felder's philosophy. It promoted forgiveness as a tool for freedom, not weakness. He didn't repent. He didn't modify history to reduce sharpness. Instead, he focused on his well-being and purpose. Felder's lectures and public appearances repeat these views, notably creative seminars and workshops. He warned younger artists about invisible fatigue, the emotional erosion you experience when your ego silences your voice in ego-driven creative situations. His lessons went beyond music theory to psychological survival in high-pressure settings. "I'm not after an apology," he said. "I performed my duty. If it's not on the album, it's in music." This statement crystallized Felder's identity as an artist, one no longer defined by the battles he fought, but by the peace he chose to safeguard. Teaching through experience. In the aftermath of his tumultuous exit from the Eagles and the years of rebuilding that followed, Don Felder quietly embraced a role that few might have predicted, that of a mentor. As his solo career progressed, so too did his engagement with younger artists and music communities, where he began sharing not only his guitar expertise, but also the hard-earned lessons that came from navigating the darker side of fame. Appearing regularly in guitar workshops, music seminars, and podcast interviews, Felder offered guidance that was rooted not in theory, but in lived experience. "I try to teach not just how to play, but how to survive," he said, revealing a mission that went beyond frets. Felder's message resonated with individuals in collaborative or corporate organizations, where creative autonomy generally suffers first. He often warned about invisible burnout, the emotional toll of having one's ideas ignored. Felder recalled how exclusion from decision-making in the Eagles hurt his identity and career. "Working under someone who don't value your input erodes your self-worth," he told Yahoo Entertainment. A veteran of artistic restriction, his observations were powerful. "Emerge stronger, not bitter." Felder's biggest lesson is leaving. He noted that some creative situations, no matter how huge, might be toxic. In a podcast interview, Felder warned that a band may become a job rather than a collaboration. He shows via personal stories how to depart with dignity, often at considerable cost. He teaches new musicians to be honest, not earn. True success is reversed fate, not celebrity but being loyal to oneself in whatever scenario. Felder teaches without bitterness despite his hardships. His balanced coaching, which exposes ugly failures yet believes in improvement, sets it distinct. "I'm not here to explain what went wrong," he said. "I'll assist them avoid that. Revenge and regret are rarely spoken. Fill the hole with clarity, resilience, faradiddades, and music's restorative power." Felder has left a legacy beyond the Eagles, solos, and courtroom battles by sharing his journey. Felder opened an unexpected vault when it thought he had given up. 50 years sound and alive. Don Felder released The Vault, 50 Years of Music in 2025, a highly personal retrospective that went beyond greatest hits. The collection included unreleased songs from his Eagles and solo careers, rather than repeating hits. Felder said these songs capture crucial periods in his life, even if they never touched the radio. Vault symbolized creative persistence, built in peaceful years after the spotlight faded. The record stood out for its content and collaborators. Felder's industry respect was shown when Steve Lukather, David Page, and Joseph Williams of Toto joined him. Felder's guitar playing combined the song's explosive rock and melancholy ballads, meaningful lyrics. The project showed his instincts were still sharp. They grew up. Some of these tracks were stored for years during his Eagles career. Felder combined ancient and contemporary concepts to reimagine those compositions with creative flexibility. It wasn't about altering his history. It voiced old music. The album The Vault was about creative freedom reclaimed. Fans and critics praised the album for its uncommon blend of reflection and reinvention. Felder said it's not nostalgia. This is about finishing work meant to be heard. The Vault was more than a celebration of his past. It boldly announced that his sound and story were still being made. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this deep dive into Don Felder's narrative and the Eagles' secret realities, like the video, comment, and subscribe for more undiscovered music history stories. Watch the next video. Don't miss it. See you then.